Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I am talking about some manager tips, and I'm doing this from a spiritual perspective because some of you all are believers. And of course, if you are a believer, you are curious as to how God deals with certain issues, okay? And we do have issues. If you are in leadership, or if you are working closely with managers, or if you hope to become a manager, then please do take heed to this message. One thing that I have seen over and over again, as one who has worked in a support role for many, many years, when it comes to managers, is they are not valuing feedback. A lot of times this is not happening. Someone is either saying something quite boldly or saying something quite subtly, and they are not taking the feedback and running with it. Okay, they're saying, oh, okay, thank you very much for that information. And they're continuing to do things as they want. It's not about the people. It's about what I put out here, how I want it done. And that's the end of it. I can tell you that when you have enough people complaining about something, your project, your role, your system, your plan is not working as well as you thought. So it would make sense to either tweak it or do away with it. Okay? I'm going to use some examples. The first example I would like to use deals with a person who says that they are having problems in an organization due to training. Now, that is one individual. So, of course, you would ask specific questions as to what their problems are. Then when they tell you some things, it would make sense to list what those things are. And then you would hold on to that information to see if other people are saying the same thing. Now, some people are not going to say anything because they feel like their job would be at a risk and they don't want to take any chances. Okay. Others are not going to say anything because they have no intention of staying with the company. And then there are those who, well, they don't know enough about it, nor do they feel comfortable enough to bring anything to your attention. Okay. The second example, an individual comes to you and speaks for a group, saying that they do not like what is taking place and that they would like to see some changes. Now, it would make sense to interview the group, and it would also make sense to see if everything they're saying is valid. And then if everything they are saying is valid, then of course another meeting would have to take place in order to get some things resolved. The problem is that people will talk about having a meeting. Then when they do have a meeting, they haven't allowed for enough time to prepare for the meeting. And so things are either not done or left on the table, or there are more questions than answers. So then the meeting becomes fruitless. Okay. And in the third example, we have managers who are meeting with managers about all of the issues, but yet some are too stubborn to do anything. Some are too focused on how much it is going to cost. And then you have others who, why are we even having this meeting? I have a whole lot of work to do. Okay. Then you have people in between. When this sort of thing takes place, the focus should be on how important the topics are to the people and why it is necessary to get things done and done swiftly. But what happens is that folks start to talk about themselves and their projects and the upcoming this and the upcoming that and rolling this out and changing this and doing that they overlook what the people in general, the majority, are saying. Okay. So once again, these are problems that start off small that end up becoming bigger problems, where now folks are reducing the workforce just because they are offended by the fact that things have not been done and they are told about it. Okay. God is moving on some of you managers in a mighty way. He's moving on you to set things up in such a way that some folks could actually start drawing near to him. And sometimes it happens through challenging circumstances where a simple if I were you, I would just pray about it. Or if I were you, I would consider going to a church. Or if I were you, I would think about advising this one and that one, about this issue and that one spiritually, because it seems like this is more a spiritual issue than maybe a company issue. And these sorts of things, of course, aren't being discussed at the workplace, but they could very well be discussed during lunch. They could be discussed after work. They could be discussed at an event that one has that has nothing to do with work. So there's a way to bring God into a situation if you really want to. But a lot of folks, they don't do it because they cannot connect the spiritual side of things with the natural. They don't understand what their role in Christ is, much less their managerial role. Okay, so they don't know how to connect the dots. Now, if you are not in a managerial position, but you are in a position of influence, it would make sense to, include some information as to who you are when you're having that informal conversation and what it is that you support and what you like and what you don't like, so that this way the person has some type of understanding as to, what you're willing to bring to the table and what you will not tolerate and all of that good stuff. Now, one thing that I have seen show up time and time again is people having their own preconceived notions as to who a person is culturally, their education, allowing that to dictate whether or not they have any type of input, their fraternal associations, their gender, where they grew up, religious connections, and their status, whether they're permanent or temp. And they will consider all of these shallow things when it comes down to making a decision, when it comes down to listening to feedback, when it comes down to getting some things done. Well, I don't really want to listen to those temps because, they're going to be out of here. But temps come in and they bring all sorts of information that could actually liven up your group, that could actually give you some insight. Okay. Then you have those individuals who will stereotype and not want to listen to people because of their ethnicity or because of the way they look, or because of their gender. Okay. And so then some valuable ideas end up being lost because folks don't want to focus, on the things that matter, which is business, which is operations, which is system processing, which is workflow, which is staffing and scheduling and budgets and expenses and administrative tasks and all of that good stuff. Those things are crucial to a successful group, a successful organization, a successful system, process, what have you. But there's a lot of that pettiness that shows up even in the workplace, even with managers, that cannot be overlooked. You have those that because they didn't come up with an idea, now they are systematically on a roll to discredit or to discourage or to mess with people's reputation. There are some folks, as I've said in other audio, that they haven't been at a company for 15, 20 plus years without having some type of body count around them. Whether they went in to report on someone's attitude, whether they, went to talk about something that bothered them, they figured out ways of just getting someone out of a position. And that's sad, but it is so true. So when you see that a person is constantly coming to you with every little itty bitty grievance and they're shifting blame and they're never taking accountability for their actions, and they don't like to be called out on the fact that they make errors, irregardless of whether they've been there 10, 15, 20 plus years, you've got to look closer at that individual. That individual could be going through burnout. That individual could be prideful. That individual could be wanting to manage. That person may be resentful. That person may even not like you because you are a manager and they're not. or they're in an assistant role, or they think that they should be the lead and not a part of the support team. So these sorts of things are things that we have to consider when it comes to being in a workplace where there are managers, or you are a manager, or you are, responsible for leading people. People have ideas. Listen to them. People have feedback, whether good, bad, or otherwise. Listen, and not only listen, do something about the situations. Because what happens is that if we don't, then things begin to fester, things begin to grow, and then before long, people are blowing up, people are snapping, people are, trying to get other folks to leave and walk out the door. And don't think for 1 minute that staff do not talk amongst each other about when and how they want to do things in order to get some things done. And if that means sticking you with a bill, or causing all sorts of havoc in the organization, or wanting to take your best people from you, they will do that. They will do that because they don't like maybe something that you said, something that you did, or maybe you have stressed how much power, how much influence, who you know, to the point where they're sick of it, you see. These sorts of things happen on a daily basis in many, many organizations, some that you would be very surprised and you would say, but I thought that was a Christian group, or I thought that that was a woman's group, and I thought that everybody got along over there. And then you find out on places like Glassdoor, or maybe Monster, or Yelp or somewhere, that service was terrible, that people were disrespectful and mean and arrogant, that operations was poor, that the people's needs were not met, that managers were often tardy, lazy, didn't consider what people were saying, a number of things. So I just hope that those of you all who are in these sorts of roles will just pay closer attention, and also pay close attention to the manipulators who are in leadership roles, who are sometimes your right hand guy and gal. I've seen that sort of thing. You think that that person has your back, but that person orchestrates some things. That person doesn't like some things about you. And so they will use their little passive aggressive tactics to keep from getting a note to you, to keep from telling you about some things that are going on within the group. They may even, try to take you out, okay, by talking to someone who is over you. You just never know. And so you have these people who are in groups like this. They are folks that if they see that there's any potential threat, anyone who is smarter than them, anyone who could be on the fast track to leadership, they don't have any problem nitpicking early on. Okay. And some people, and I've noticed this sort of thing, will come up with some bright ideas, some interesting ways of getting people to work with them, to, release some burdens from them. But then their intention is to eventually get rid of them. And I was personally a victim of this sort of thing. I had expressed interest in a particular position, working with someone who I thought would be a great person to work with. I had put a request in to work with the person, and then I found out that she was doing some shady things on the job. She underestimated my skills in terms of the language that she spoke. And she also underestimated the fact that I knew some of the equipment as well. And so when she saw that I could actually do more with some things than she could, and that I had some really good ideas and had started to spearhead some things, suddenly she's looking for faults in me. And she's bringing things to her boss's attention behind my back, never addressing anything with me. And so then before long, I find out that the at will clause is being used upon me, which basically means that we can get rid of you at any moment. Okay. And so when I talked with the individual who was responsible, I said, on what grounds? The lady says, oh, well, I just want to let you know, I thought that you did this, this, and that. And I said, oh, no, this isn't how it happened. And I explained. But by that point, they had already made up in their minds. And there was nothing that was so bad and so wrong that required my dismissal. But if a person wants to set some things up in such a way because they feel threatened by you, because they feel jealous, because they feel like you might go and tell on them, then they're going to get you out before they're exposed. And so she knew that she was doing some shady things with companies' tools and services and so forth. So she didn't want me to get to the boss before her. So let's get her out. But I will tell you that God is a good God, because another person who she did the same thing to prior to me, which I wasn't aware of, but the young lady told me after she was long gone from the company, it turns out though that that woman ended up losing her job. So the moral of the story is that for managers anyway, is to pay close attention that one that is so-called your right-hand guy or right-hand girl, they're in your face a lot because they're distracting you from what's going on in that closet, in that drawer, on their computer, with the other staffers. They're distracting you from whatever secrets and lies and cover-ups that they have. And so quite naturally, they don't want you to know some things, so if they can blame some other folks, especially temps, that's what they're going to do. So I thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Please do check out workplaceproblems.blogspot.com. Also check the description box for anything related to your situation. I have a number of books out, including What Else Can I Do on the Internet? This is a great guide for anyone who is interested in learning more about all sorts of subjects and how to go about searching for them on the internet, how to keep busy, doing all sorts of cool and interesting things. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen. And as always, to God be the glory.